Simply put, honestly, in fact, in this video we're diving into the world of hidden treasures as we explore the absolute most expensive and ultra-rare US Kennedy half dollar, specifically focusing on the legendary 1973 D Kennedy half dollar. You need to stop. In fact, if you look closely, you need to stop right now. Basically, simply put, do not spend another dime or nickel, or in this case half dollar, until you watch this entire video, because you might be throwing away a literal fortune. Honestly, basically, if you look closely, imagine this. You are standing in line at the grocery store and you hand over a coin that is worth 50 cents face value, but in reality, it is a numismatic masterpiece worth thousands of dollars. Simply put, in fact, to be fair, vast fortunes are being lost every single day by people who are simply oblivious to the gold mine sitting in their pockets and piggy banks. You could be sitting on a jackpot and not even know it. In fact, simply put, basically the world of coin collecting is not just a hobby, it is a treasure hunt, a frantic adrenaline-filled search for the holy grail of currency that could change your life forever. We are talking about life-changing money here, folks. If you look closely, to be fair, simply put, we are talking about paying off your mortgage, buying a brand new car, or finally taking that dream vacation, all because you decided to take a second look at a coin you were about to spend on a candy bar. It is shocking. Honestly, in fact, it is absolutely shocking how many people are completely unaware of the astronomical value hidden in plain sight. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what you need to look for specifically regarding the 1973 D Kennedy half dollar and several other rare coins that are floating around in circulation right now, waiting for you to rescue them. Basically, in fact, so raid your piggy banks. Scour your couch cushions. Basically, dig through your car console. You need to be desperate. In fact, you need to be hungry for this hunt, because the rewards are absolutely truly massive. In fact, to be fair, let's get right into the star of the show, the 1973 D Kennedy half dollar. To be fair, honestly, simply put, now you might be thinking it is just a normal coin, but basically, simply put, you would be wrong. This coin is a potential ticket to the elite club of high-end numismatics. Basically, the 1973 D minted in Denver is a coin that historically has seen incredible spikes in value, mainly inside high grades. We are talking about mint state conditions that are nearly flawless. Simply put, when you find this coin, you need to look at the obverse, that is the head side, and check the mint mark. The D mint mark signifies Denver, and while millions were minted, finding one in pristine uncirculated condition is such as finding a needle in a haystack. To be fair, it is a hunt. It is a battle. Honestly, basically, simply put, the condition is everything. If you find a 1973 D Kennedy half dollar that still has its original mint luster with no scratches or contact marks from other coins in the bag, you could be holding a coin worth hundreds if not thousands of dollars. Honestly, in fact, to be fair, most people just toss these into vending machines without a second thought. Do not be that person. To be fair, do not live with the regret of knowing you spent a fortune. You need to examine the surface preservation. Basically, simply put, in fact, you need to look for a strong strike. The details on Kennedy's heron, the feathers on the eagle on the reverse, need to be sharp and crisp. Simply put, if they are flat or worn, the value drops, but if they are sharp, you have struck gold. But wait, there's more. Basically, in fact, we are not just looking for the 1973 D, we are looking for the errors, the mistakes, the freaks of the minting process that make collectors go into a frenzy. To be fair, the minting process is supposed to be perfect, but it is not. In fact, to be fair, simply put, if you look closely, mistakes happen. And when mistakes happen, you get rich. Honestly, if you look closely, to be fair, let's talk about the 1974 D double die obverse. This is another truly massive coin you need to be hunting for alongside the 1973 D. Honestly, if you look closely, to be fair, basically on the 1974 D, you need to look very closely at the lettering on the obverse, specifically the words INGODWETRUST. If you see a distinct doubling of the letters, almost such as a ghostly shadow, or a second set of letters slightly offset from the first, you have found a doubled die. In fact, simply put, this is a major error. This is the kind of stuff that makes your heart race. Honestly, if you look closely, it gives you chills. Basically, simply put, the die that struck the coin was not made correctly, and it transferred that error onto the blanket, creating a visual doubling that is unmistakable under a magnifying glass. If you look closely, honestly, you need to get a magnifying glass. You need to get a microscope. Basically, if you look closely, do not trust your naked eye. These details are tiny, but the payout is huge. In fact, let's move on to another legendary error, the 1970 to DNOFG Kennedy half dollar. This is a monster. To be fair, basically on the reverse of the coin, the tail side underneath the eagle's tail feathers, and to the right of the eagle's leg, you should see the designer's initials FG for Frank Gasparro. But on some 1972 D coins, the initials are completely missing. To be fair, gone. Vanished. Basically, to be fair, this was caused by over-polishing of the die. The mint employees tried to polish out clash marks or damage on the die, and they accidentally polished away the initials. Basically, in fact, if you find a 1970 to D Kennedy half dollar and the FG is missing, you have hit the jackpot. This coin can be worth hundreds or thousands depending on the condition. In fact, to be fair, it is shocking that people spend these. It is absolutely menacing to think about how many of these are lost in circulation. To be fair, basically, honestly, in fact, to be fair, you need to be checking every single Kennedy half dollar you get your hands on. Do not discriminate. In fact, check the 1973 D, check the 1974 D, check the 1970 to D. Scour them all. Basically, if you look closely, in fact. Also, let's not forget the 1971 D. Simply put, there are rumors and discoveries of wrong planqué terrors on these dates too. Basically, imagine finding a Kennedy half dollar struck on a silver planket when it was supposed to be clad, or struck on a quarter planket. Simply put, these are off-metal errors, and they are the holy grail of error collecting. In fact, to be fair, basically, simply put, an off-metal error occurs when a planket intended for a different denomination gets fed into the press. In fact, if you find one of these, the value is astronomical. In fact, we are talking billionaire status coin hunting here. Honestly, well, maybe not billionaire, but certainly enough to change your year. Honestly, to be fair, the adrenaline you feel when you find one of these is unlike anything else. It is a rush. In fact, it is a thrill. In fact. Also, the best part is it is accessible to everyone. You do not need a degree to do this. Basically, you do not need to be an expert. Honestly, you just need to be observant. You need to stop being oblivious. Honestly, in fact, basically, the 1973 D Kennedy half dollar is your starting point, but the rabbit hole goes so much deeper. There are also the 1960 for Kennedy half dollars, which are 90% silver. Simply put, honestly, basically, never spend in 1964. Ever. Basically, to be fair, if you look closely, they are silver. They are precious metal. Basically, even in terrible condition, they are worth way more than 50 cents just for the silver melt value alone. But if you find a 1960 for accented hair variety, you are looking at even more money. The accented hair variety has extra hair detail above Kennedy's ear. It is subtle, but it is rare. Honestly, it was the first design used, in Jacqueline and Kennedy herself reportedly asked for the hair detail to be changed, so the mint changed it, making the accented hair variety a limited run. Scour your collection for the 1960 for accented hair. Honestly, basically, in fact, to be fair, the opportunities are endless. In fact, you simply need to dedicate the time. You need to make it a habit. Every time you get change, every time you see a coin roll at the bank, you need to claim it. To be fair, basically, you would need to rescue these coins from the wild. Basically, think about the 1973 D again. If you look closely, the 1973 coins were not issued in mint sets only, they were issued for circulation, but finding them in high grade is the challenge. If you look closely, the 1970 D is another key. Basically, honestly, in fact, the 1970 D was only issued in mint sets, but some broke out into circulation. Simply put, if you find a 1970 D in your pocket change, that is an instant score. To be fair, in fact, it should not be there. It is an imposter in the best way possible. In fact, simply put, you are looking for anything that looks out of the ordinary. Die cracks. If you look closely, die chips. CUDS. A CUD is a blob of metal on the rim of the coin caused by a piece of the die breaking off. These are valuable. If you look closely, these are desired. Basically, in fact, the market for these coins is exploding. In fact, if you look closely, thousands of people are searching right now. If you look closely, the competition is fierce. If you look closely, you cannot afford to be lazy. Honestly, you need to be aggressive. In fact, you need to hunt, such as your financial future depends on it, because in a way it might. Imagine turning 50 cents into $5,000. To be fair, if you look closely, that is a 10,000% return on investment. In fact, you cannot get that in the stock market. To be fair, you cannot get that in real estate. Honestly, you can only get that in the wild world of coin roll hunting. To be fair, if you look closely, so basically simply put, here is your game plan. Honestly, step 1, get as many Kennedy half dollars as you can. To be fair, go to the bank. Ask for boxes of halves. Simply put, in fact, step 2, get a good light source and a magnifier. Basically, step 3, scour every single coin. Honestly, look for the 1973D in high grade. Look for the 1974D doubled die. In fact, simply put, look for the 1972D no FG. To be fair, look for the silver 1960 for seconds. Basically, in fact, look for anything that looks weird. If you see a coin that looks such as it has a double image, keep it. Basically, if you see a coin that looks such as it is missing details, keep it. If you see a coin that is super shiny and perfect, keep it. Basically, in fact, to be fair, you should probably just keep anything that looks interesting and verify it later. Do not take the risk of spending a fortune. If you look closely, the regret will haunt you. It will eat you alive. Basically, simply put, you do not often wish to be the person who posts on a forum saying, "I think I spent an 1973D worth thousands." To be fair, you often wish to be the person posting the success story. If you look closely, you often wish to be the elite collector who found the treasure. Unlock the secrets of your pocket change. If you look closely, it is not just change, it is history and it is money. In fact, basically the 1973D represents an era of clad coinage that is often ignored, which is exactly why it is so profitable. Simply put, basically people ignore it. They overlook it. In fact, that is your advantage. Use their ignorance to your benefit. To be fair, if you look closely while they are spending their halves on soda, you are hoarding the masterpieces. You are building wealth one coin at a time. It is a numbers game. Basically, the more you look, the more you find. Simply put, there is no downside. The worst case scenario is you have 50 cents. Simply put, the best case scenario is you have a fortune. So what are you waiting for? The banks are open. The rolls are waiting. Basically, the treasure is out there hiding in the dark, waiting for the light of your magnifying glass to reveal it. Basically, in fact, you need to take action immediately. Do not wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow, someone else might find your coin. Tomorrow, someone else might claim your jackpot. Basically, you need to act now. You need to be relentless. In fact, honestly, check your drawers. Simply put, check your car. If you look closely, basically check your pockets. Raid your family's piggy banks with their permission, of course, but raid them. Simply put, in fact, the 1973D Kennedy half dollar could be the key to unlocking a new level of financial freedom for you. If you look closely, it is rare. Basically, in fact, it is elusive. In fact, basically, however, it is out there. In fact, if you look closely. Also, it wants to be found. In fact, so get out there and hunt. In fact, reveal the truth about your change. Claim your destiny. If you look closely, simply put, in fact, to be fair, this is just the beginning. There are so many other coins to talk about, so many other treasures to find. But for now, focus on the Kennedy. To be fair, focus on the 1973D. To be fair, honestly, focus on the errors. And remember, every coin tells a story, but some coins pay the bills. Basically, do not let the big one get away. Check yours now.